North Yorkshire, the largest county in England and Wales. From seaside resorts like Scarborough to the historic city of York.
It just offers you everything that policing could offer you. You work the cities, you work the rural areas.
6,000 miles of some of Britain's most scenic and most unforgiving roads.
We've got 3 casualties out of the vehicle that's there in front of us.
The traffic cops here deal with among the highest number of serious collisions per person than anywhere in the UK.
Roundabout, wrong way, wrong way.
Tonight, runaways.
Come back here! Hey!
Doesn't really matter, occasionally people blow, don't they?
A roadside haul.
So there's maybe 1.5 kilos in weight in there.
And a major investigation into a tragic accident.
The update that I've just got over the radio as well from the hospital is that there's now a fatal accident.
Welcome to North Yorkshire, a vast area stretching the traffic cops to the limit. Covering 3,200 square miles, North Yorkshire's traffic cops have the biggest beat in England. Coordinating the cops on the road is the Force Control Room in York.
Yeah, do you want plus 2, sir?
This centre receives and processes all calls to North Yorkshire Police, around 900 every 24 hours.
Excellent, Oscar Romeo 4-1.
The pressure is on controllers like Dave Hopkinson to maximise police resources.
You've always got things running through your mind. Most of the time it's where's my nearest units, what units do I need there, what areas do I need to consider closing off, trying to think one step ahead. So you're constantly looking at the bigger scenario.
It's 5 p.m. and 15 miles north, TC Steve Kiwi Gardner of the North Yorkshire Road Policing Group is at Harrogate Police Station at the start of a shift. An urgent call comes through from the Force Control Room.
Can I come in urgent? Yeah, I've got an unconscious male from a motorcyclist.
Sounds serious.
It's a report of a collision involving a motorcyclist on the A59, 5 miles west of town. The complicating factor is it's on a stretch of road closed due to an earlier accident.
It sounds like a knock-on effect from the traffic congestion from that bump has caused another RTA further back involving a motorcyclist who is now unconscious. The road is a major arterial route east to west between Harrogate and Skipton. There is no alternative route. It does sound serious at this point in time.
We're very fortunate to live in a rural county, and some of the roads in our county have a major attraction to motorcyclists from all over the country.
These long country roads are also badly affected by the elements.
The weather conditions are really deteriorating right now, and it's going dark very, very quickly, so it makes you wonder why a motorcyclist goes out in these conditions.
Kiwi knows just how dangerous bad weather can be for bikers.
Being a motorcyclist himself, it's scary. Very, very wet roads, very heavy downpours. Motorcycles don't have any protection at all. So once you're involved in a bump, if it involves a motorcyclist, it's potential serious.
He arrives to find a local police team already on the scene.
We've got people already closing the road here, that's great.
As the only available traffic officer, it falls on Kiwi's shoulders to begin the investigation.
My role initially is almost a management role. The police take control of any scene, no matter what other emergency services are there.
Kiwi receives an update from one of the first officers to arrive at the scene, a local firearms cop.
There's another accident that way, is there?
Yeah, we've been to that one.
Right, okay.
We've left
What's the status of that one?
They're all right.
Is it minor injuries or anything?
Minor injuries, just a bit of a back injury. And then obviously, that one came in and you got this one shouted, and the paramedics come across to us and said the information they've got is the bike's had a right big clout and it's possibly fatal. So that's when we've come to this one straight away.
Sure.
The rider is in a critical condition.
I could see oxygen bottles there, and I knew that that was not a place for me to be. They had that under control.
7-1 update, we've got 2 ambulances at scene. Looks like the casualty's just entering one of them. Likely to prove it. Full call out, please.
Full call out is what we use for collision investigation unit to have them to the scene. It sort of ups the ante really on our investigation.
This severely damaged motorbike will be a key piece of evidence.
That is a Triumph Daytona 575 triple. Can you do a postcode check and see if that is registered to that address of it?
We have a term in our job we call the golden hour, and in the first hour after an accident we can actually gather a lot of evidence. Each accident scene that we attend are entirely different, and there are clues left at the scene like a crime scene that you might see on a movie.
Another vital piece of evidence will be the testimony from the driver of the car the motorcycle hit.
Does anyone know who the driver of this Honda is, please? In the car, that way? In the van. In the van, oh, hello. Hello there. Can you tell us what happened? Okay, that's fine.
The husband of the lady driving the silver Honda was driving this blue van with his wife following behind. They'd been asked to pull over by the police because of the accident ahead. After waiting for some time, they tried to do a U-turn in the road. As they did so, the bike collided with the Honda. Both husband and wife claim the bike had no lights on.
At that point, my ears pricked up to the gentleman telling me that the motorcycle approached with no lights on. Most motorcycles run with the headlights on full time, and it's impossible to turn them off.
Right, okay.
As well as investigating the couple's claim that the bike's light was off, Kiwi also needs to establish if the driver should have seen the rider prior to the impact. The driver says she indicated and checked the road was clear in both directions, but as she made her U-turn, the rider appeared from nowhere.
Everyone sees an accident differently, they describe things differently, they judge speeds differently, but to get that initial account is important to me.
Can you find that lorry driver? Can you find where he was when the accident happened?
Bike overtook him.
Right, he's a cracking witness then. We need all his details, and we want the statement tonight if we can.
Now Kiwi has to piece together the facts behind the collision and whether anyone was at fault. Back in the force control room in York, the collision is one of many incidents being handled tonight. As well as coordinating the police response, Controller Dave Hopkinson also tracks the movements of known criminals. He monitors information from the county's many automatic number plate recognition, or ANPR, cameras.
ANPR is a very good piece of kit that we've got. There's various cameras plotted throughout the force. They will read every number plate of vehicles that go past. If there's a vehicle that is interesting to ourselves, that will flag up on my computer system here. From there I can then read the number plate, see the information held on it, and pass it out to the officers in the area.
TC Martin Hayes of North Yorkshire Roads Policing Group is on patrol near Wetherby when ANPR flags up a wanted vehicle.
VW Caddy in southbound at 1 mile mark at 43.
Monitored.
Martin is one of the nearest units.
There's intelligence regarding that vehicle that it may be involved in theft from the Leeds area. It's a silver Volkswagen Caddy van.
ANPR is probably one of the best pieces of equipment to come out in the last few decades. The key thing for us is to get there as quickly as possible to apprehend any offenders, but also prevent them from destroying or disposing of any evidence.
Martin transferred from the Metropolitan Police to the North Yorkshire Force 10 years ago.
When I was telling people I was moving to North Yorkshire, I was abused for going off to deal with badger baiting, sheep rustling and carrot theft.
But there's more to this patch than rural crime.
There's an undercurrent of criminality that most normal people will never see, but it's out there on the roads, and that's what we're out trying to catch.
Martin joins the A1M south of Wetherby, at least 2 miles from where the van was last spotted.
It's at the point now where the A1 splits, so it's going towards the M1 towards Leeds. There he is.
A police Land Rover is already on the van's tail. When challenged to stop, the driver in front of the Land Rover puts his foot down.
It's quite clear from his actions that he has no intention of stopping for us. And for all intents and purposes, we're now into a pursuit.
As the runaway driver's speed rapidly increases, so does the risk of it causing a collision.
We were certainly 100 mile an hour plus, I think, by this point.
Martin takes over as the lead vehicle.
There's all sorts going on in your mind at the time. First and foremost is there is a sense of danger, but we're trained to drive at that speed. The idea is to prevent him getting off the motorway network, to keep him on the biggest, widest road we possibly can, away from as many members of the public as we can. The last place we want him going is into town.
The van veers onto the hard shoulder.
What he's doing there is extremely dangerous. If there's an unlit, broken down vehicle further along that road, at the speed he was travelling at, the results would be catastrophic.
Has he just thrown something out? It appears to have thrown something out, possibly at junction 42-41. Yeah, I'm lead vehicle, a single crew TPAC trained. Safe to continue. Can we have authority for TPAC, please?
TPAC, or Tactical Pursuit and Containment, is a strategy to try and box the van in and bring it to a stop.
Romeo 22 from the control room supervisor. Authorisation to continue TPAC tactics has been granted. Do not hit yourself or any other road users. Did you receive of it?
But then, roadworks.
Motorways are always a dangerous place, but now we're down to one lane plus the hard shoulder. The danger level is increased greatly. My concern at that point was, do I have to consider calling this off now?
In the last 10 years, 194 fatalities have occurred during police pursuits. Martin continues his pursuit, and when the lanes open out again, the van looks for an escape route.
Pursuit monitored. It's junction 44. It's off to A639 towards Leeds. Roundabout ahead, 3 options, standby, standby.
Now heading off the motorway, what the driver does next is even more dangerous.
Roundabout, wrong way, onto the dual carriageway, standby.
Their focus is on getting away, and they'll do anything at their means to do so. Without a doubt, the consequences of a head-on collision at dual carriageway speeds, it's guaranteed there would be a fatality in that.
With Martin under pressure to continue the pursuit without putting anyone else at risk. On the A59 west of Harrogate, TC Steve Kiwi Gardner is dealing with the aftermath of a major collision that's left a young motorcyclist critically injured. Paramedics are taking the biker for further treatment to hospital.
So how do I feel? It's sad, but it's also something that as a traffic officer you've got to try and contain those feelings and move on.
We have to have an internal mechanism that will try and preserve and protect our own sanity, our own well-being, for our family's sakes anyway. Sometimes it's more difficult than others.
The biker hit the Honda doing a U-turn, and despite the claim that the bike had no lights on, it's unclear who, if anyone, is to blame for the collision.
The questions that we need to ask as investigating officers now is, was the motorcyclist there to be seen, and was the driver turning around cut straight in front of the motorcyclist, or was the motorcyclist wearing dark clothing without a light on in dusk and not there to be seen?
That's our number one role, is to produce evidence to see if anybody's done anything wrong. Most accidents involve someone making an error, so it's our job to find out which driver made the error and how severe was that error.
Kiwi needs witnesses to help establish exactly what's happened.
Did you see anything?
A witness tells him that they spotted the bike 10 minutes earlier, driving at high speed.
You're fantastic witnesses. We want you to stay here for the meantime, if you can, please. Please. Thank you very much. We've found 3 separate witnesses now that have seen the motorcyclist at some point, but further before the accident scene. And they've all stated that he's been going flat out.
As Kiwi talks to the witnesses, forensic collision investigator Steve Kirkbright arrives.
I finished duty for the day. Because of the nature of our force and the size of the area, we also do an on-call system. I'd gone home, I'd taken the dogs out for a walk. I think we were just at the point of discussing what we were going to do for tea, and the phone went.
Steve served 30 years in North Yorkshire Police, including 14 as a crash investigator, dealing with serious road incidents across the county. His job is to bring a methodical approach to investigating the crash scene.
My mother would tell you that logic, puzzles and things like that have always been a fascination to me. I'm turning up at the end of an event and I have to work backwards through time, and I might take over 100 photographs. The damage to the cars, the position the vehicles are in, where the casualty came to rest, marks on the road surface, tyre marks, scrape marks, where the glasses ended up out of the car. We form conclusions from factual evidence.
What are you thinking? The bike's gone over the top. Bike's gone sideways. So it is a...
There's no scrapes to where the bike goes, and there's nothing across the verge for the rider.
Yeah, okay.
Bike's gone over the top.
Right. What angle are you putting the car on then in the turn, do you think?
All of that.
Yeah. There's the other side window, yeah? Here. Right, okay. So it's an angular blow, it's not a direct hit, yeah.
It's 10 p.m. This A road has been closed for more than 4 hours, causing major disruption between Harrogate and Skipton.
It can be a difficult thing for the public to understand that when they're sat in a tailback on a diversion, but there's a responsibility. We will take our time. At best, I tend to deal with collisions that involve life-changing injuries. At worst, people are dead. We will apply as much resources and skill as if somebody had been murdered. Sean's going to jack up a road closure.
And we'll have to reconstruct it.
Do some timings for that.
Like we did on that last one.
Yeah. So if you look at the view,
brilliant.
Bring that unmarked BMW and work it out.
Okay, nice one.
When Steve has gathered the evidence he needs, everything from the crash scene will be removed.
It's too early to give a full picture of what's happened. Do a full mechanical examination of the 3 vehicles involved, the blue van, the Honda and the motorcycle. Check that there's no defects with any of them, do a reconstruction, align the damage, and see what the motor vehicles tell us towards the story of what's happened here tonight.
With the collision team in control of the scene, Kiwi's focus now turns to the driver, who needs to provide a formal interview back at the station.
You're feeling unwell at any point in time, just let us know, won't you? Obviously you've been through a massive shock today.
She is very, very traumatised, in shock almost.
If you don't feel well, just let me know, alright?
She's in absolute pieces. Total concern for the other rider. And it's quite common with people I deal with that they're always asking for updates on the welfare of the other drivers involved.
The driver's account will be key in determining the events that led up to the collision. "15 miles south, PC Martin Hayes is still pursuing a wanted van heading out of North Yorkshire towards Leeds.
It's B648 towards Leeds. Stand by for direction at next roundabout.
The van dumps something on the motorway and, desperate to escape, the driver is becoming increasingly reckless as he races into the city.
Yeah, 188 to red ahead of me, gone straight through, not stopping.
He sailed through a red light like it wasn't even there. All he cares about is getting away.
Oscar Romeo 18 is now the lead vehicle.
Martin may have support in place, but during a high-speed pursuit, it's his judgment that counts.
There is an element of the thrill of the chase, but you have to be aware of any possibility of what we refer to as red mist setting in, where the pursuit becomes a personal challenge between you and the vehicle you're chasing, and safety becomes a secondary concern. That's when you should be stopping.
He's still ahead of me about 100 yards, speeds around 80 miles an hour. Second set of traffic lights coming up, we're coming up to an underpass.
In the mazy outskirts of the city, Martin and the other pursuing cops are in danger of losing their target.
He's got a right before the underpass. Into an industrial estate, it's a loss.
He's given us a slip and we've somewhat lost him. It is the proverbial needle in a haystack now.
He went into Leeds city centre on the signage saying the A58, A61 in towards the city centre at the back of what was Tetley's Brewery, I believe. And after that I've had to abandon ship.
The cops have lost the van, but the trail has not gone cold. There's still whatever was dumped on the motorway.
I've come back to junction 46 to locate the property thrown out. It's a large cardboard box. It's full of cannabis bush, which is all on the motorway, which we're going to collect up.
I do believe that would explain the fail to stop.
Oscar Romeo 22, go ahead.
Yeah, likewise, I'm going to depart Leeds, head back for North Yorkshire.
Oscar Romeo 22, that's 50, thank you.
Back at base, Martin meets T.C. Smith, who was in the Land Rover during the chase. He has quite a haul.
I would turn around and say there's probably maybe 1.5 kilos in weight in there, roughly speaking. I would think there's some blown into the grass, but that's what was down the hard shoulder and run into the gully, so I've used my best talents as Mrs. Mop and picked it all up. Have we got a bag for this, because this is the box that sinks the cannabis?
It was a good result to take that amount of drugs off the street. Rough value, I think, is somewhere in the region of £5,500 to £6,000, possibly more.
The cannabis and the box are important evidence that could lead to the van driver.
With it being sort of shiny cardboard, there's a fairly good prospect of getting some fingerprints off it. That would be the ideal.
News comes in that the van has been found abandoned in Leeds.
There should be enough forensic evidence to link somebody to the vehicle, and with the footage from our cars, hopefully with enough evidence there to prosecute them for driving offences, drug offences, who knows what else we might find. If you could remove drugs from the equation, you would remove a large portion of crime. Most crime is committed by people who are doing so to fund a drug habit.
While the van driver escapes justice tonight, this is a case that won't end here.
The job doesn't stop now just because the pursuit's over. No, there's inquiries that can be made to trace the people that were in the vehicle, and that's the main thing for us, really. The pursuit's over, but those inquiries now commence.
"17 miles northwest at Harrogate Police Station, TC Steve Kiwi Gardner is continuing his investigation with the driver of a car involved in a serious collision with a motorbike. While the driver waits to be interviewed, control room staff pass on some tragic news.
The update that I've just got over the radio as well from the hospital is that there's now a fatal accident.
Kiwi's investigation has become even more serious.
There's a possibility that the driver of the car has committed an offence of driving without due care and attention, but now that the motorcyclist has died, that offence ramps straight up to death by driving without due care and attention. So it's quite a serious offence. Well, it is an extremely serious offence.
Two factors will determine whether or not the rider was clearly visible: the motorcycle's speed and whether its lights were on.
There's no way you can ride a motorcycle without a headlight.
No, it'll
automatically. And they both said that there was no headlight on the bike. It might be the case that when she started to turn and she looked down the road, the motorcycle wasn't there because it was going so fast. It was actually over the brow of the hill around the corner. It is also possible that she was following her husband, who's had that same turn. She's more looking at what he's doing and where he's going than looking down the road at a motorcycle coming towards her very quickly. In our job, there's no more important investigation than to be able to account to a family how and why their loved one died. I feel sorry for both parties. I feel sorry for a family now that's got to suffer that bereavement, and I feel sorry for what seems like a split second in her life is now going to have a knock-on effect for the rest of her life. I need to caution you, okay, before we start, and that is that you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something that you may later rely on in court. Anything that you do say may be given in evidence. We're constantly monitoring her signs, her speech. If she took any downturn whatsoever, we would stop the interview and continue another day.
The key question for Kiwi now is, could the driver have seen the bike before she decided to U-turn? The driver insists she looked in both directions and it was clear as she crossed the road. Then she describes the rider looming into vision from out of nowhere and the sound of the collision.
I know that road very, very well, and I was very aware that there was a straight piece of road. And so while she's describing her U-turn, it became a worry to me that she couldn't see a motorcyclist coming towards her.
That makes sense. I don't think I have any further questions at this time.
It's been an extremely traumatic night. Tomorrow, the collision investigation team will determine whether the driver could and should have seen the bike. North Yorkshire stretches over 100 miles from the Pennine Hills in the west to the North Sea coast in the east. To cover such a vast area, many of the traffic cops here work single-crewed. It's 11 AM, and PC Mark Ganella of Scarborough Roads Policing Group is on patrol in the county's biggest coastal town.
Scarborough's built up on a community of people that have lived in this area for years. It's a beautiful area. Last Sunday, you could drive along the seafront in Scarborough with the sun rising. You know, how lucky am I? I wouldn't change it.
At 11:15, your control room receives a report of a collision in the Barrow Cliff housing estate on the edge of Scarborough.
Yeah, do you want pastis?
Mark is the nearest officer.
What have you got?
We've got an RTC high grade coming in, and for Cliff Crescent, the road's blocked. The driver's been texting, hit another car that's parked.
Yeah, I can start in that way, I'm not far. It appears that a vehicle has possibly crashed into a stationary car, and there was some talk of the driver may well have been on his phone at the time.
Across the UK, 1 in 3 accidents happen within a mile of home. In such a residential area, it's possible that someone involved will live close by. Mark arrives to find neighbours moving a car to the side of the road. His job is to find out if anyone's at fault.
Oh, this may well be.
Go ahead.
Hello? Are you involved? Where are you going? Are you the driver? Are you driver? Can you come back? Hang on. No, not 2 seconds, hey! Come back here! Right, okay, you were driving? Yeah, well, I don't want you running off while I want to talk to you.
No, I was just getting my
phone,
that's all, because he was sat in the car with me.
The initial thought for me is I hardly ever go to an accident where I've got someone running away from the scene, specifically the driver. That's the alarm bells for me. What's this person hiding? Why do they want to get away? Should they have been driving?
It seems the driver has bumped another car just outside her home.
Is this your car, is it?
Yeah.
Are there any witnesses to what happened? What I'll do, I'll get you. Can you just sit in my car for 2 seconds? Just one of you witnesses. Can I just have one of you, please?
All of a sudden, an irate husband adds to the chaos Mark has to deal with.
Right, don't come down here and start having an attitude with me.
I'm not attitude all these people and all
right,
cameras.
okay, all right. Were you in the car?
Yeah.
Right, well, I'll speak to you in a minute. I want to speak to the driver of the car first, all right? He's agitated, isn't he? I've got to try and keep him calm because you don't know how he's going to react. What's he going to do? I don't want you getting excited.
No, I'm not excited,
all right?
obviously.
Is that your house up there?
Yeah.
Why don't you go up there and I'll come and talk to you in a minute? Come and sit yourself in here, all right? Don't press any of my buttons.
Finally, Mark can get an account from one of the bystanders.
Did you witness it?
She was coming down here.
Right.
The lady's car, it was like basically like on the road here.
Did you see why it skimmed it, why it hit it?
No, I think the car did move a little bit like that, a bit off balance. So,
right. Was she doing anything in the car?
No, just normal.
You saw the driver?
Yeah.
Because someone said she was on the phone?
No.
No driver on the phone?
No. I saw it clear as day. She was on no phone.
Right. You pop over there, I'll have a chat with this young lady. Hey up, right. What's happened?
Basically, I was just driving.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. It just bumped that car.
Well, why did you just bump that car? There's got to be a reason that you bumped it.
I must have been too close.
Well, how did you not see the car on the road?
Well, I did see it, but I was checking that side as well because there was kids on the side of the road. I was looking out that mirror because there was kids on the road, and obviously...
Right.
There's something about the driver's account that isn't ringing true with Mark.
Most people I deal with, they know what's happened, that the story sort of flows, and she's putting too much thought into it for me. I think I'm taking it with a pinch of salt at that time. I'll be honest, someone said that you were on the phone. Were you on your phone at the time of the collision? Have you got your phone with you?
My phone's there. My phone's been on charge in the car. I've just unplugged it.
So what were you doing? Were you doing anything with your phone?
I wasn't doing anything with my phone. My son's just phoned my daughter to say that obviously I won't be going because of what's happened.
And who did you ring before that?
That's my husband.
Where was sat? He
was sat in the back, and my husband was sat in the front.
Right, okay. So why did he phone you?
Obviously because of my daughter. I was going to see my daughter.
Right, but he was in the car with you?
Yeah.
It's unravelling. You know, as she's talking, she's not thinking quickly enough to try and cover her tracks, and there's a lot of questions now running around in my head. Why would he phone you if he's in the car with you?
No, because he got out the car after I bumped it.
Don't ring right, does it?
Well, that's what happened.
Unable to establish if the driver was on the phone, Mark suspects she may have been committing other offences.
I think police officers join the police because they're that way inclined. You're nosy, you want to ask questions, you want to find things out, go slightly under that surface and dig that much deeper. Have you got a driving licence?
I've got a provisional.
Right, OK, where are your L plates?
In the boot.
Has your partner got a full UK driving licence?
Yeah, he's fully con.
Was he supervising you then?
Yeah.
And you're on the insurance?
No, I'm not, no.
So you're not insured either?
No.
OK. I've got to caution you that you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court, and anything you do say may be given in evidence.
It's estimated that every year 35,000 learner drivers are prosecuted for not displaying L plates.
It's important that you put L plates on a car because everybody else then knows you're a learner driver. Everybody else treats you with that little bit more sort of understanding, don't they?
The driver's husband has returned to his damaged car.
Can you not drive it? Not drive it for us, mate. Can I just have the ignition keys? Have you got your keys?
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, can I have the keys? No, come here.
My keys?
Right, come here. Come here. Right, listen.
Yeah.
851, can I have another unit, please? Right.
Do my keys?
Right, listen to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with you.
No, I'm going to
all right?
argue.
And I'm not going to get stupid, all right? Will you drive in that...
It's my property.
Right. Listen to me.
Yeah, no, I am listening to everything, but...
I'm in order, but I have to do with the
I
unit, please.
hang on.
Policing in North Yorkshire is very different to Manchester or the Met. You haven't got that backup maybe 20 seconds, a minute away. So maybe that's why I deal with people in a different way. What I don't want to do... all right, hang on. What I don't want to do... at the moment, we're down here.
Yeah.
All right? I don't want us to end up there. I want to inspect the car.
Yeah, so.
I need to check the car.
Yeah, so.
I want the keys. You're not going to wander off with the keys. You've just tried starting it.
Yes,
and hang on. He's excitable. He's upset. The last thing I want is fighting with people.
"60 miles southwest, TC Steve Kiwi Gardner of the Road Policing Group is patrolling the A61 between Harrogate and Ripon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm born and bred Kiwi. I was in the police in New Zealand. That's where I started my career. There's not a great deal of difference in policing New Zealand. We wear a very similar uniform. A lot of our case law is from British courts, so we have a lot of similarities, except for the weather.
It's 1:30 p.m. and a call comes in.
Sergeant's just shouted up Paul Cording. He's trying to get a car stopped just in the next village along from here, and it's failing to stop for him. At this point in time, we don't know why, but we're actually quite local for it. I'm just trying to picture where he is at the moment.
The words fail to stop prick up any traffic officer's ears, and I listened to the location and realised very quickly that we were within a close proximity of that fail to stop vehicle.
Just 2 miles east, Sergeant Paul Cording of North Yorkshire Roads Policing Group is in pursuit of the fleeing Vauxhall.
7-7, I've put a challenge in at the crossroads. It's a single male, fair hair with glasses. I do not know the identity, and he has failed to stop. It's 6055 back towards Ferronsby.
Paul had spotted the car a few moments earlier and signalled it to stop.
I only wanted to speak to the driver about his speed, and one thing's led to another. Why he's failing to stop at this stage, that's the million-dollar question.
Making his way to the area, Kiwi listens in on the police radio, planning to cut the driver off at the next village.
Speed is at 40 and still continuing.
As Kiwi listens to Paul's updates, it's soon apparent there's something very odd about this countryside chase.
We are entering the village of Ferronsby. Speed is 30.
Unusually for this type of pursuit, the speeds were quite low. This chap's slowing down for all of the junctions, taking a wide berth with a pedestrian jogger. He's not actually doing anything dangerous.
Approaching the crossroads, it's a right, again down the Cockgrove Stabley Road.
Moments later, the driver suddenly slows to a stop.
Stop there.
I pulled up to the near side of this vehicle, made eye contact with the driver. He was indicating to me that he wasn't going to stop and he wasn't going to get out of his vehicle by some mouthed words and gesticulations with his hand. It was a little bit of a strange one.
As the car sets off again, Paul stays on the driver's tail, while Kiwi's playing catch-up.
This is the village of Staveley now, where he was 2 villages ago. Cockgrove's 1 mile away from where we are. He's only just gone through Cockgrove. We're about a mile behind it now.
I personally cycle off-duty around this area, so I know all the little back roads, and I'm trying to picture the direction the sergeant's travelling in, so that I can either get ahead of him with a stinger, or I can assist him with a boxing in.
No deviation, near junction to Cosgrove and Burton Leonard. Speed is 50, still safe to continue. Again, approaching the village of Staveley from generally the westbound direction.
That's not good. The fact that he was going towards Cop Road, he's obviously done a big loop. So I've been trying to play catch-up, he's actually come back round behind us.
It's the most bizarre pursuit I think I've ever been involved in. This driver is just playing games with us here.
With the runaway driver now on his second lap of the area, other units have been called in to assist.
If somebody can get to Whitecross Crossroads, that's probably where we're going to come out.
Kiwi's headed towards the location, but he's half a loop behind us.
We've just come from down there, he's just come through here.
And it is a right on a 605 towards the general direction of Thursday.
I can't believe we've had to loop back round again.
It's completely cat and mouse at the moment. We've got now 3 vehicles, all in different locations, all about a mile apart.
I can't believe it.
Thank you very much.
Driving around in circles.
By this point I was completely frustrated because I'm turning around and playing catch up again, so it's actually the distance is widening.
Yeah, we've gone left towards Farnham down that one-way track which will come out of the bottom mark.
At last, Kiwi catches sight of the Vauxhall.
He's at the bottom of this hill now. He's over there.
But as he reaches the scene, Paul and the other pursuing vehicles have made the arrest.
I was taking you. Actually, mate, whoever was following me, I wasn't trying to outrun you. I was letting you keep up, and we were just playing a game. Big deal.
Right, fellas, this is what I'm going to say. You're under arrest for suspicion of failing to stop and also dangerous driving.
When you stopped me, it wasn't failing to stop. You'd actually stopped me where I lived. I just thought I'd take you on a wild goose chase. It's good fun, though. Not bad.
It was a needless pursuit, almost as though it was a game, which, for me, is a ridiculous statement, because it quite easily put people's lives at risk for no apparent reason.
The question the cops need to answer now is why. "60 miles east, traffic cop Mark Ganella has questions of his own, dealing with a minor collision on an estate in Scarborough. The driver has a provisional licence but wasn't showing L plates. She has no insurance and is claiming her husband was in the car supervising.
I'm investigating a collision.
Well, it's great, yeah. Nothing significant, but...
It's an accident.
Yeah.
All right? We don't want to get silly about it.
Mark has his hands full trying to calm the driver's husband down.
At the moment, I don't think she's insured to be driving that car.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's got a driving licence that allows her to drive the car. Yeah, exactly. So she shouldn't be driving it without L plates on. So at the moment, no insurance, no licence. So I want to chat to her.
Right.
All right? It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
All right?
Right, okay, go to the office, please.
You're going to go in the house, aren't you?
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to come and see you in there in a minute, all right, once I finish with your young lady.
The backup Mark requested arrives.
And they're here. Brilliant, thank you. Cheers, mate. Husband's just getting a bit of a silly one, and could just do with just one. I don't need three, but just one hanging around just in case he comes out and decides he wants to be a silly boy.
With the husband in the house and backup on the scene, Mark can get to the bottom of the driver's story.
Right. It seems really odd to me that you've had a collision here, 30 metres from your house. You've phoned. Okay? That seems odd to phone someone that's in the car with you. The scenario at the moment is you're driving otherwise than in accordance with the licence because you haven't got L plates in the car. You've got no insurance because you're not on the insurance policy. If he's not sat in the car with you, it doesn't change that at all. If he is sat in the car with you, then he commits an offence of allowing you to drive that car with no insurance, and he'll be prosecuted for that offence. If he weren't in the car with you, don't talk him into getting himself into even more trouble.
My thoughts are, I just want the truth. And I don't want people prosecuted when they don't need to be. I don't want people at court when they don't need to be. It's just waiting for that honesty, and that's what I want. Maybe I'm old-fashioned.
Be honest with me. This is your 30 seconds that I'm going to give you while I dig in there to think about what you're going to tell me, because I will dig further and I will get witnesses. Is that fair?
I think that silence is a brilliant tool. You can sit there with someone and you can ask a question and don't say anything else, and that silence just maybe puts them in a position where they feel they've got to say something.
Tell me what happened. Were you by yourself?
Yeah.
Right. No one else in the car, were you?
No.
Why did you lie?
Because I didn't want my husband to get into trouble.
What I want is honesty, all right? At the end of the day, I'm not going to turn a blind eye to what you're doing, right? You are going to get prosecuted because you can't be out here doing this. You can't drive a car with no insurance. You can't just do what you're doing. It's wrong, isn't it? You're putting not only yourself, but everybody else at risk by driving that car. Is that not fair?
Yeah, I understand.
It's really bad. For me, you've got to have a massive reality check.
Mark has one matter left to sort out: the husband.
I just hope that people, when they leave me, actually think I was dealt with as fairly as I could have been there.
At the end of the day, he shook my hand. He's happy with the outcome. He's got his car still, and he's going to resolve it with the other party as to the damage they've caused. So you can't ask for more than that, really.
You know, yeah, I'm going to prosecute people, of course I am. Yes, I'm going to arrest people. Yes, I'm going to fight with people. But I try and deal with them fairly.
Back in Ferronsby, Paul and Kiwi still have no idea why a driver led them on a low-speed wild goose chase.
Because I haven't resisted anything, have I? So quite clearly, I'm not resisting, I'm not a danger, I just can't be asked to stop here. I just can't be asked to get a ticking off from you guys, just can't be asked. Was I drinking or something? No, I wasn't. Just off with you, off with life, off with everything. Doesn't really matter, occasionally people blow, don't they? You don't have to have been drinking or be the wrong side of the law. Just get off with everything.
It's quite strange. I mean, I overheard him say he'd had a tough couple of weeks, but at work, I don't really know. It's all a bit odd.
Colleague PC Mark Mullins searches the car for any clues to the driver's behaviour.
There's no blatantly obvious, Paul. There's no smell of weed though. He's got a couple of bags of this stuff you can buy at the internet.
A breath test comes up blank as well.
I'm satisfied that is 0. Have you taken anything else at all today?
No. I bought some legal highs to take back at home later.
They're obviously what's in the car, but you haven't had any now?
No.
Right,
no,
okay. You class yourself as white British?
Yes.
Excellent, right. We'll speak to you a bit later in relation to what's going on, okay, fella?
With the driver on his way to Harrogate Police Station, Kiwi and Mark are piecing together what happened in the chase.
I was en route towards Borough Bridge in the right place at the right time. Got to the Coppergrove turn off, turn right, as he's already come past that location, back towards Staveley.
This is like when we go out for a drink. Kiwi's nearest the bar, but there's not much less to get to it. Hello, Mark speaking.
He's got a point.
Liar!
Yeah, if you can't take the mickey out of yourself, then it's not worth being in this job.
Later, at Harrogate Station, Mark books in the driver.
Anything in your pockets?
No.
Harm me or anybody else? Anything that you shouldn't have to? No.
The reasons why he chose to ignore the cops are still no clearer.
How are you feeling at the moment?
Well, the reason I didn't stop is because I didn't care. So, yeah, so I don't care.
I understand that, sir.
Well, whatever you've got to do, guys, yeah.
You know, you have to deal with people. You know, he's had a bad day at work, he's had a bad day at the office, he's had a bad day at home. You do have sympathy with people, but ultimately, you know, if that's happening in your life, should you be on the road driving a car? You know, a ton lump of metal at great speeds that can cause a lot of damage to people. You're in this one. It's got glass on front. I'll just put some lights on for you for now.
The man is going to be placed in a cell whilst the cops make further inquiries.
We won't keep you any longer than necessary, okay?
No, I did wrong.
We'll sort it. Okay?
Thank you.
No bother. But yeah, he's been compliant, no bother at all. Just strange behaviour on the road.
"30 miles away in Thirsk, collision investigator Steve Kirkbright is searching for the cause of a fatal motorcycle accident.
Motorcycles ended up over there.
The driver of a Honda was doing a U-turn during bad weather when the bike collided. Steve is briefing the team, who will help investigate if someone was at fault.
The Honda's just out of sight, bottom right photograph. We're trying to paint the picture for them so that they know what they're going to deal with. No marks on the road surface from the Honda on the left of the photograph going to the right of the photograph, which is where the rider and bike end up. Until we get to, see there, number 1, that's what's left of the glass sunroof. I think it comes over the top of the car, lands and slides there.
Steve needs to unravel whether the Honda driver should have seen the bike coming, whether the rider was at fault, or whether it was a combination of the two. The driver was adamant the bike's headlight was off, but new evidence has emerged.
It turned out a patrol car at the collision further down the road into Harrogate had actually caught the motorcycle passing on the inboard camera, which showed the motorcyclist's headlight to be on.
The next thing Steve needs to establish is how clear the driver's line of sight was in the direction the bike was approaching from.
If you consider it's happening here, I've extended my plan all the way back here. As that Honda sat looking, you can see, you raise from Harrogate, you can see down to Harrogate. We've got a witness that says he had his headlight, motorcyclist had his headlight on, the motorcyclist is there to be seen.
A further examination of the scene by Steve confirmed the rider had to be 347 metres away from the Honda before his headlight was visible, and travelling in excess of 170 miles an hour to be out of sight of the driver.
Testing has shown that the manoeuvre undertaken, having done it 5 times, works out with an average time of 4.34 seconds. Therefore, the motorcyclist can't travel from out of sight, but he was there to be seen. He was within the length of road that she could look down and have view of.
Steve's findings will be compared to those of an independent expert to help the courts determine if anyone is to blame for the accident. One other explanation could be a combination of the rider's initial speed and the principle of motion camouflage, which may have rendered the rider invisible to the Honda driver. As a motorcyclist himself, Steve knows the attraction of North Yorkshire's roads.
I live in Thirsk. If I pull my motorcycle out of the garage and turn left, I'm in the Dales. If I turn right, I've got the North York Moors. It's a pleasure. It's the ability to escape.
But having worked these roads for 30 years, he also knows the dangers.
The problem is that there can be unforgiving roads as well. In North Yorkshire, I know the history of every bend. I'll be prompted by a bunch of flowers which over a year I've watched die and fade and suddenly be replaced by a new bunch, and will remember that it's somebody's birthday and that's mum and dad have been back to that scene, and then watch over the following year them die off again.
The investigation moves to a workshop in Harrogate, where he can scour the vehicles involved for clues to the biker's speed, potentially a contributing factor to the crash.
We're just going to try and position the motorcycle, just for my benefit, upright as it would be when it was ridden, and just see if it fits together like a piece of jigsaw. It may not. Right, drop it down a bit. Drop the back. Keep dropping it, Kenny. All of that. Brilliant, thank you. It just helps us form the picture of the mechanics of the collision. Those last milliseconds as the two undamaged vehicles come together, what makes them end up in this state. You think a tenth of a second before the motorcycle hit that car was in perfect condition, and so was the motorcycle. A tenth of a second after the collision, you're looking at that damage there.
Steve needs to rule out faulty brakes as being the cause of the collision.
If you look at the disc brakes, they're not rusty. If you don't use a brake for a long time, it builds up a surface layer of rust. The fact that they're clean says to me that the brakes have been working.
The workshop investigation takes a team of 3 people 12 hours to complete, but Steve has no doubt about its importance.
Somebody's died. It's got to be investigated as far as we possibly can. Because the motorcyclist isn't here to explain what happened and what he did. It's finding the balance between using science and remembering you're dealing with people's loved ones. Anybody in our unit will see more violent deaths in a year than the whole of the CID will, just from the nature of the job. And you have to find a way of being able to go home and deal with that.
The best evidence Steve has to determine the bike's speed is the result of the impact.
Damage to both the forks. The fork legs are bent backwards towards the engine, they're twisted, and the wheels deformed within the lower mounting. So it's all starting to tell a story about the amount of force that's been applied to here. This is the frame of the motorcycle. This is the main structure. Everything else is built around that central frame. But if you look here, the frame is actually snapped there. I need to look at those cracks and work out there whether they've been caused in the impact or whether it was a pre-existing crack which has led to a failure, which has led to the motorcyclist losing control. We don't make assumptions. It's not that it's rusted and deformed, it's been a physical blow that's done it. There's a rough guide with a speed limit of 60, somebody travelling at or about that speed limit, you might start to get cracks in the frame. On this occasion, the motorcycle frame hadn't only cracked but had parted. As a rule of thumb, within the office, if the frame snapped, it's 60 plus, 60 mile an hour or thereabouts. When you consider that the speed limit on that road is 60 mile an hour, and that the rider may have braked before the impact, that would suggest that the approach of the motorcycle is in excess of the speed limit.
So, while Steve's report concludes the motorbike probably had its lights on and was there to be seen, an alternative explanation offered by an independent expert suggested the rider was travelling at speed and possibly invisible to the Honda driver. It's now up to the courts to decide who, if anyone, was to blame for this collision. But whatever the verdict, there's no undoing what has been a terrible tragedy for all involved.
What you need to visualise is somebody throwing a pebble into a perfectly still pond and the ripples going out to that pond. And the closer you are to the centre of the pond, if it's your son that's been killed in a road accident, the great effect, but the ripples go on. This gentleman had work colleagues that he didn't turn up for work for, family around the world that have been informed in a phone call, partners, friends. The driver of the other vehicle can have massive effects and ripples that go on for years and years and years.
At York Crown Court, a jury of 12 found the Honda driver who collided with the motorcyclist on the A59 not guilty of causing death by careless driving by a unanimous verdict. The occupants of the van that dumped over 1 kilogram of cannabis on the A1 but escaped into Leeds have not been identified and are still at large. The learner driver who bumped another car close to her home on a Scarborough estate was banned from driving for 6 months and fined £110 for driving otherwise in accordance with a licence and no insurance. And the driver who led the cops on a country lane wild goose chase was fined £100 and disqualified for 6 months for failing to stop and driving without due care.
Friday means film time. That's tomorrow on 3, with the lovely tale of a 78-year-old guy floating off into the sunset to realise his dream. It'll make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, so don't miss it. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock on 3.